This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry.
Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. I am your host, Shawn Soole. Obviously, this week it's Post Shift Shot, so it's a nice Tuesday morning. I hope everybody's enjoying their week back. Usually most hospitality workers are actually getting back to work today. They have that Sunday, Monday off. This week I've been toying around with this sort of seminar thing, and I know I've talked about it a little bit with cocktail culture as a niche still, which is really important to me because it's a sort of a concept that I've been working through, and I've sort of started putting down things to paper, and I've done a lot of things like small city cocktail culture, how to build a cocktail culture, this sort of thing. So this really builds on an analogy that I was asked of many, many years ago, and the analogy was when I started opening up Little Jumbo. So I was at working at Clive's, and in Victoria we had Veneto and Clive's. There's always Veneto and Clive's. Then I went and opened up Little Jumbo. Then I went over to Olo. Then I did Cafe Mexico. And a rep said to me, and it really struck a chord with me, and I've always remembered this, is like, you keep cutting up the same size pie. And he was right in a lot of regards, is that there's only a certain pie for population in Victoria, and there's only a certain size pie for cocktail culture in Victoria. Like, we start talking about saturation levels and stuff like that, which I think we have a great cocktail culture here in Victoria, mainly because of our consumers. And I think that we sit at about 10% saturation. And what do I mean by that? If you haven't listened to my other podcast, 10% saturation is based on how many people in your market actually get cocktail culture. Foodies, drinks people, like that sort of thing. Like I would say 10%, which is around about 100,000. No, sorry, about 10,000 people, because we only have 100,000 people in Victoria downtown. So I'm saying about 10,000 people, maybe 15,000 people in Victoria get what we do. Because we are still a very big niche. Everybody, even in the big markets, cocktails are still a niche. I think that saturation points don't run a straight line based on population. They're definitely something that sort of curves off, plateaus, if you will, based on your demographic. So he said to me, he's like, Shawn, you just keep cutting up the same size pie and doing slices between more venues. So Clive's and Veneto is 50-50. Slice. So I started to come up with an analogy as like, my analogy was basically, if I don't want to be a slice of the pie, I want to figure out how to make the pie bigger. And making the pie bigger gives you a sustainable culture, which is a big thing for me, is that cocktail culture has to be sustainable. I've been to a lot of small markets this year, so you places like Halifax and Red Deer and that sort of thing. You need to create a sustainable, long-term culture to actually make money, because if you just keep cutting up the same size pie, someone's going to die. And I know in some bigger markets, people are opening bars to cannibalize someone else's market, which is not cool and sucks. So really when you start thinking about it, it's like, okay, so if you open up a cocktail bar because in our little bubble sphere, now this is a big one because with the algorithm that social media uses, you get fed what you search for. So, in our little bubble, we get liquor.com ads, or sponsored products, or sponsored posts, and all these sort of things that are based around our likes and what we search for. And this happens. This is basically what the social media algorithm is all about. It's consumer facing, and you're the consumer. So you get put into this little bubble of, like, oh, what I'm doing is fucking epic, and I'm getting these articles written about me. But really, when you think about it, like, if you want the most humbling experience, which I've talked about before, go to a liquor store on a Friday afternoon and see what people are buying, and you'll see a lot of vodka, like Mickey's of vodka, and a lot of Labatt's and Coors and that sort of thing. So it's a very humbling experience, but it does raise a red flag onto how much of a saturation point your market has, which is a big thing. It's a very big thing, because the thing is that everybody starts opening cocktail bars and bars and bars and bars, and what happens is you just keep slicing up a smaller portion of the market. So how do you become the pie? This is a fun one. I was talking to someone in Calgary about this actually just the other night. So everybody does bartender education. Everybody has brand ambassadors come in and train bartenders and do all these seminars and all this sort of stuff. So when this happens, you must do a general public consumer tasting. This is a given. It cannot be missed. A consumer general public tasting for free has to be done. So for every 1 cent you spend on bartender education or staff education, you should be spending 3 cents on consumer education, because the consumer education and the consumers coming up with knowledge-wise as the same as the bartenders. Why I say 1 to 3. Bartenders will educate themselves. They'll read articles, they'll read books, they'll do courses, this sort of stuff. Bartenders will educate themselves, and they will do just fine educating themselves. But if you educate your consumer the same way, that means that the consumer is on par with the education level as your bartenders, then everybody is winning. The consumer's winning, the guests, the staff are winning, and your venue is winning. You also become sort of the epicenter of cocktail culture. Now, this is something that I've proven real at Clive's. This is something that I've proven multiple times over at Clive's, Cafe Mexico, all these places. Consumer education is paramount to your bar's sustainability long term, because you might get a trickle-down effect of new people coming to the market, or people from big cities coming to visit the market, or tourism, that sort of thing. You're going to get that, but your base is your consumer that lives in your city. So my 1 to 3 rule: 1 cent of education that you pay for the industry, 3 cents to the consumer, and you will, trust me, you will be blown away with how much ROI you get on that. So I've talked about your sales mix and your sustainability. Check out your sales mix. Like, if you're a cocktail bar and you're pushing hardcore cocktails, but everybody's drinking beer and wine, you have to re-gear and re-engineer the direction of your bar based on what you want to achieve. So this is a two-year plan, a 5-year plan, and then backcast back from that. If everybody's just coming to hang out in your bar and drinking beer and wine, that's not something you want to do. Yes, beer and wine, keep the lights on. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying be dicks to people who want to order beer and wine in your bar. But what I'm saying is that if someone comes to your bar for beer and wine, chances are there's a bunch of other bars in the city who are doing beer and wine, and as soon as someone has a better wine list or a cheaper price, they're going to change. Now, you may give amazing intangibles like service, ambience, all that sort of stuff. You may give incredible intangibles and they won't leave. But always keep in mind, when people come to your bar for stuff that not necessarily you're trying to push, there's always a chance of them going over to a different bar with a better price, better wine list, a better sommelier, and other intangibles that they may be looking for. So, I'm trying to keep this very short, so I'm trying to do an hour-and-a-half seminar for you guys in 10 minutes. So, this brings me back to the bartender education, demographics, guest education, where you want your bar to sit in the market, and it comes down to awards, judges, and press. This is a big one, because I know a lot of awards. I'm not going to get into World's Best 50, because I recorded recorded a podcast for World's Best 50, and I never posted it. That was a schmozzle this year. Absolute gong show. Completely rubbish. So, judges who judge these things, they're also usually brand ambassadors, and you can ask these people to your bar. You can drop an email, Facebook message, whatever, say, hey, if you're ever in my area, pop by, let's do a staff education, a guest education. But do guest education as well, because when they get exposed to the market that you're in and the people that you're serving, it is exponentially better ROI on showing them what you do with the people that are backing you to get like a nomination and that sort of thing. Now, when they come, they do a guest education, they do a bartender education, all this sort of stuff, it's beneficial to the whole market. Rising tide raises all ships, that sort of thing. Now, I have a lot of people who poo-poo awards, which is fine. That's your opinion. I honestly, truly believe that in a small market especially, an award can be the difference between closure and staying open. Now, you can have the best cocktails, you can have the best service, you can have the best food, you can have everything. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the consumer and what they're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, it goes back to that mass market thing. Sometimes consumers just don't know. And this is an issue. It's like, if you get an award or a nomination or anything, the amount of media and marketing that comes for free, because if you're a small business, you do not have money for marketing, you do not have money for PR, you don't have a whole big budget for advertising, and awards and nomination give you that free advertising that really builds out something that could be special for your business, and it can mean the difference between opening and closing, which is a horrible thing. But in this day and age of restaurants, we all know restaurants can go under. The best restaurants go under. Some of the most prolific operators in the country and the world have had bars go under. Fuck, I've had bars go under. But at the end of the day, these awards, these nominations, this coverage can really mean the difference between staying open and closing, which is a really big deal. But then it's basically like it grows out your little matrix of a judge comes, he does a bartender education, he does a guest education, he gets to see your city, gets to see the other bit bars in your city, shows that the cocktail culture you're building as a culture, as a community, which I find sometimes is not necessarily equal in the way of big cities. A lot of cliques and all that sort of bullshit. So these things all work together in the hopes of getting a possible nomination and some marketing, some media coverage, that sort of thing. And that really builds up the community, really builds up your city, really builds up your bar. And while some people will shit on awards and say that they're not needed, they're out of date, big cities, big markets get them because people go through those markets. So you've got to always look at that sort of stuff. And I honestly do believe that if you can build out a solid marketing plan, that you can capitalize on free marketing through media, through awards, through whatever, it's the best way of getting the nominations that you need. And that helps. It's a trickle-down effect. It opens, an article can open yourself up to a bigger mass market. That mass market, you might get 1-2% more saturation off that market. That's a big thing because it's a sustainability. And sustainability of business is very important. So that's my little, don't be a slice of the pie, be the pie. That's definitely what I'm going to call this episode. Hope you enjoy your weeks, guys. Thank you very much for your support. As you can see, I'm wearing some BC Spirits swag. BC Spirits is a massive passion project for me. Please go and check out the website. Buy some swag. It really helps to support the local distilleries that I'm trying to support, and it goes a long way. And the swag is pretty cool. I love this shirt so much. But thank you, guys. I'll see you next week. This week, I believe that I have my last Toronto Cocktail Conference podcast, which I've done 13 of, and that is Jason Knowles from Clive's here in my hometown of Victoria, my old stomping ground. So listen out for that, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, guys. Thanks. Have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Booze Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.